إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وينفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah for coming out in December. I see many more faces than last week. So that's going to pose a bit of a challenge because we covered quite a bit last week. I'm going to try and give you a gist of what we discussed last week. We basically discussed the meanings of Rahman and Raheem. We discussed the vastness of the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the excellence of the life of the Prophet ﷺ and how he lived his life in rahmah, and how to attract this rahmah and to bring it into our lives. And inshallah we'll continue from there with this week's lesson in trying to inculcate the lessons of rahmah into our everyday lives, inshallah. So now we're going to today, inshallah, look at finding this light. And Imam al-Shafi'i says knowledge is not what is memorized, knowledge is what benefits. So once we know all of this, we have to do something with it. Otherwise, it's a wasted exercise. And so we must use this to transform our lives, inshallah. And not only that, we can use it to even transform our DNA. Because we know with the new field of epigenetics, what the mind is focusing on has an effect on the expressions of the genes in the body. So the first thing in the anagram of Rahim, we did Rahman, now we're going to do Rahim. The first thing we need to learn is reliance. And we must be reliant on the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because it's so expansive and extensive. First of all, nothing happens without the permission of Allah. So it's futile to rely on anything else except the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this verse, Ibn Mas'ud, he says this is the greatest verse of tawakkul in the Quran. And the Prophet ﷺ said, if my ummah understood only this verse would be sufficient for them. وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. If you have the taqwa, and taqwa means that you have an awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and then you act in a way to protect yourself. Because it comes from the word wiqaya, which means to protect. So this is what actually taqwa means. You know, Sayyidina Ali says taqwa, al-khawfu min al-jalil, to fear the majestic, wal-amalu bil-tanzil, and to act according to the revelation, wa-rida bil-qalil, and to be pleased with little, wa-isti'adadi li-yawm al-rahil, and to prepare for the day you travel back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what taqwa is. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. And Ibn Kathir says what this means is, Allah is saying, come to me with tawakkul, and I'll come to you with whatever you need. This is the exchange. This is the rahmah. So when you have the reliance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is what starts to happen. Allah comes with whatever it is you need. Inna Allah balighu amri. Because Allah always accomplishes His No one can out decree Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قَدْ جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدْرًا. And Allah set a seal over everything. He controls everything. And Imam Ghazali, he said, you must convince your heart that whatever Allah has decreed is most appropriate and most beneficial for you. We must understand that if we find ourselves in difficulty also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants something from us, or He wants to elevate us. We have to do an introspection, and only we can answer that question. Because the Prophet also said Allah tests those He loves. And Allah also says, وَلَنُذِيقَنَّهُم مِّنَ الْعَذَابِ الْأَدْنَى دُونَ عَذَابِ الْأَكْبَرِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. We'll give you the small punishment before the big one in order that you may return. So whatever is happening, we must understand it's appropriate. And we must convince our hearts that way, and we must do muraqabah and muhasabah to see what it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. The next thing is acceptance. We must be willing to accept whatever the Prophet ﷺ came with. Because we see he lived his entire life in the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the only way we can follow suit and enjoy those same privileges is by sticking under the shade of the Quran and the Sunnah. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. Obey Allah and obey the Messenger. Why? So that you can receive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rahmah. And Allah says, وَمَا كَانَ لِمُؤْمِنٍ وَلَا مُؤْمِنَةٍ إِذَا قَضَى اللَّهُ وَرَسُولَهُ أَمْرًا. It's not for a believing man and a believing woman. When Allah and His Messenger have decreed something, أَن يَكُونَ لَهُمُ الْخِيَرَةُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِمْ, that they have a choice in the matter. وَمَنْ يَعْصِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ فَقَدْ ضَلَّ ضَلَالًا مُبِينًا. Because if you disobey Allah and the Messenger, you have indeed strayed very far away. Far away from where? From rahmah, from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have reliance, we need the state of heart called tawakkul, we need acceptance, or Torah if we want, which is absolute obedience to the Prophet ﷺ. For those we did the small talk on the 10 things you need to live in South Africa, you'll see all these things feature. Remember, we did the 4 T's, the 4 S's, the I and the D. And then we need humility. And this is very important, because this is something Shaitan uses, or the lack of it rather, to snatch rahmah away from us. Now I just want to explain something to you, the way the brain ties events together. Normally if you touch something hot, for example, and the next thing is you burn. So what the brain does, it ties those two things together, those two events. So in the future you won't touch it. Because you know when you touch, what follows is pain. And so it ties those two things together. Okay? So what this actually does is it allows the brain to play tricks on us. So for example, you see lots of sports people are superstitious. Maybe if you take like the Spanish tennis player, Nadal, if you see before he serve, or when he's receiving a serve, he's putting his hand on his nose and moving his finger, because probably he did that one day and won a point, and now the brain tied those two things together, and so that gives birth to that superstition. Or maybe one day somebody walked under a ladder and something fell on him, and so now we don't walk under ladders. Or someone one day saw a black cat and something happened and the brain tied those things together, and now we say don't. Or when you see a black cat, there's some evil omen. But generally what the brain also does is, if we somebody that has financial success, for example, the brain can take that and tie it together with this understanding that Allah is pleased with me. Or you run your business in a certain way, and instead of recognizing the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you think it's your business sense or your business skill that's bringing the business instead of the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Many a time we do certain religious acts and something goes our way, and then we tie those two things together and we think it's that act that is bringing this benefit, rather than seeing the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, we did this in Ramadan, Shaykh Ibn Atta'illah, he said one of the signs of relying on one's own deeds is the loss of hope when a downfall occurs. What that means is many of us, for example, we say, I must fajr this morning. Na'udhu billah, we shouldn't do that, but we say, I must fajr this morning so the day is going to go bad. So what you're actually thinking is that it's the fajr that makes the day go well. But if you understood it's the rahmah of Allah, if you missed it, immediately you turn to repentance and hook yourself back onto the rahmah of Allah and hope for the day to go well. But we don't do that. We wait for that day, for everything to go wrong, and then we say this is why it went wrong. Or we may do some other kinds of acts and things work out, and then we think it's those actions that did it rather than the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَتُهُ مَا زَكَى مِنْكُمْ مِنْ أَحَدٍ أَبَدًا. If it wasn't for the favor of Allah upon you and His rahmah, none of you would be able to purify themselves. مِنْكُمْ مِنْ أَحَدٍ, anyone, abadan, ever. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يُزَكِّي مَن يَشَاءُ. But Allah purifies who He wants to. We see this ayah, if you want to become pious, it's not your actions that's going to make you pious. This is a verse from Sulaiman, and this is a dua we should always make. فَتَبَسَّمَ ضَاحِكًا مِنْ قَوْلِهَا. This is when Sulaiman heard the words of the ant, and the ant was warning the other ants that Sulaiman is coming. So he said, وَقَالَ رَبِّ أَوْزِعْنِي أَنْ أَشْكُرَ نِعْمَتَكَ الَّتِي أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيَّ وَعَلَى وَالِدَيَّ. Allah, you give me the ability to thank you for the favors that you've conferred upon me and upon my parents. Now listen, وَأَنْ أَعْمَلَ صَالِحًا تَرْضَهُ, and give me the ability to perform actions that will please you. وَأَدْخِلْنِي بِرَحْمَتِكَ, you see, and enter me through your rahmah fi ibadika salihin, into the company of your pious servants. So it's the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that takes us into the highest stages of His ibad. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, now the best people after the Anbiya were the people of Badr. The Sahaba understood that. And Allah says, وَلَقَدْ نَصَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ بِبَدْرٍ وَأَنْتُمْ أَذِلًّا. Indeed, we gave you victory in Badr when you were adillah. You were a small, weak, insignificant group. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ, so have the taqwa of Allah, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. Now look at this. This is the best of people that went into the greatest of battle, and Allah is telling them, you should be grateful. Now, when the battle was over and people came back to Medina, one of the young Ansar, he was giving the news of the battle. And so people asked him, how did the battle go? He said, these were just old men that came to be slaughtered, and we slaughtered them. And the Prophet ﷺ said, no, my cousin, these were the leaders. Allah gave you victory over them. And so this is why to make the shukr. They were favored to be amongst those people that from the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us, وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. You see, it's not your business, it's not your degree, it's not your skill, it's not your piety, it's not your lineage, it's not the village you come from, it's not the town you come from, it's the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that any ni'mah you enjoy is from that rahmah. So don't claim the favors of Allah as your own. This is a sure way to lose the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And just to illustrate this point further, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَوْ يُؤَاخِذُ اللَّهُ النَّاسَ بِظُلْمِهِمْ. If we have to take mankind to account for their wrong actions, that means all of us, مَا تَرَكَ عَلَيْهَا مِنْ دَابَةٍ. Not a single creature would be left. Every single man, jinn, and creature is functioning and living on the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says, Saddidu. Saddidu means behave appropriately. Do what's right. وَقَارِبُوا, and try to draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَأَبْشِرُوا, and give people good news. This is what we don't do. Give people good news. فَإِنَّهُ لَنْ يُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةَ أَحَدًا. Not one person can enter Jannah, عَمَلُهُ, through his actions. قَالُوا وَلَا أَنْتَ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. Not even you, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. قال ولا أنا, not even me, إلا أن يتغمدني الله منه برحمة, except that I receive the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ أَحَبَّ الْعَمَلِ إِلَى اللَّهِ, and know that the most beloved action to Allah, أَدْوَمُهُ وَإِنْ قَلَّ, is the continuous one, even if it's small. You see, it's not the greatness of the action, it's the vastness of the rahmah. These are all things just to attract that. So, Ibn Taymiyyah says, the disease that knowledge brings is arrogance. And the disease that worship brings is showing off. And this is the sure way that the shaitan uses to rob us of the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani says, do not strut proudly on account of your good deeds. Do not let pride waylay you. Pride, let it not ambush you. When you deem yourself holier than others, know that you have fallen into grave error. So, we must have the state of humility in order to enjoy the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next important thing is iman, which is the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hearts of the believer. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِاللَّهِ, and as for those who believe in Allah, وَاعْتَصَمُوا بِهِ, and they hold firmly onto Him, فَسَيُدْخِلُهُمْ فِي رَحْمَةٍ مِّنْهُ, Allah will enter them into the rahmah from Him, وَفَضْلٍ, and His bounty, وَيَهْدِهِمْ إِلَيْهِ, and He'll guide them to Himself, صِرَاطًا مُسْتَقِيمًا, on a straight path. So, have iman, and hold on to Allah. Look what happens. The rahmah comes. And we need the rahmah to get to Jannah. So, iman is that the brain follows the heart. This is a spelling mistake. I'll have to fix it before we end. But iman is that the brain follows the heart and not the other way around. So the Prophet ﷺ says, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يكون هواؤه تبعا لما جئت به. None of you believe until his desires is in accordance with what I came with. You can't have a counter offer, because the counter offer takes you away from rahmah. Obedience is what takes you to rahmah, anything else takes you to loss. And then obviously ihsan. So now we got R-A, or remind me, Adil? R-A-H-E. The second E is ihsan. And ihsan is what adds light to the worlds. Okay, so there's the anagram. We got the Rahim with the ihsan. And we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تُفْسِدُ فِي الْأَرْضِ بَعْدَ إِصْلَاحِهَا. Don't corrupt the earth after it's been balanced. وَادْعُوهُ خَوْفًا وَطَمَعًا. And call on Him in fear and in hope. إِنَّ رَحْمَةَ اللَّهِ قَرِيبٌ مِّنَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. The rahmah of Allah is close to the people of ihsan, the people that would behave beautifully and excellently. And in another verse, Allah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ مُحْسِنُونَ. Allah is with the people of taqwa and the people of ihsan. So now we have our anagram. We have reliance, acceptance, humility, iman, ihsan. And now we're going to discuss the last part, meaning. And if we wanted to, we could reduce all of those things into this last M. Because the last M is actually what is expected from us. It's what we're going to be using to generate the light. Okay? And so, meaning, what gives meaning to our lives? And if you want 2 words, it's be useful. Be useful. As soon as a person loses their sense of usefulness, first of all, their immune systems and their brains collapse. and then everyone loses interest in them. You can see people when they retire. Many of us may know people that retire. As soon as they retire, illness came. You say, this guy was healthy, he was in the gym, he was doing all this, and then he's living his dream to retire, and then he retired, and that was the end of him. You know, I had a friend, Allah grant him Jannah, he was much older than us, and he said, it was always my dream to retire at 60. He said, when I got to 60, I had all the money, you know, but illness came, and the joy of life was left me. No more joy, you know. Now, a few months ago, we were in Turkey, and I met a friend of mine. And he said to me that his father, at the age of 20, worked for a bank in Izmir, and the bank opened an office in the marketplace. And so he was like the person helping all the traders with their financial problems. And he worked there for 45 years. So at 65, he retired, and the traders went back to the bank and said, no, you have to bring that guy back. You know, things are too difficult without him. So he came back and he worked another 5 years. So 50 years he worked in that job. And then at 70 he retired, and before he got to 71 he died. Although at 70 he was in perfect health. So be useful. Look, our lives are fixed. Okay? Quantity you cannot increase, but quality you can determine. And if you're useful, people will remember you even after you're gone. We must remember them. Why do we love the Prophet ﷺ? Because of the beautiful legacy and life and treasure he left for us. So if you want meaning in your life, be useful. So let's see, is this confirmed in our Sharia? The Prophet ﷺ says, Al-mu'minu ya'lafu wa yu'lafu. The believer is one, he says friendly and befriended, the one who cooperates and gets along with others. وَلَا خَيْرَ فِي مَنْ لَا يَأْلَفُ وَلَا يُؤْلَفُ. And there's no good in one that doesn't cooperate and get along with others. But look at the end. وَخَيْرُ النَّاسِ أَنْفَعُهُمْ لِلنَّاسِ. And the best of humankind is the ones who are most beneficial to humankind. You want meaning? Be useful. If you're useful, you bring light into your life. If you lose usefulness, if you are a user or useless, you bring darkness into your life. So, let's just look now, the key to light. We should have this tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We must have ta'ah. We must accept what the Prophet ﷺ came with and what Allah revealed. We must be humble. We must have iman. We must have ihsan. And we must have meaning. We must be useful to ourselves and to others. So, be useful to yourself by being useful to others. These are the things. Now, as I say this, I don't want you to look at this as if you're studying it. I want each one, as we go through each point, to introspect and analyze how much each of these things are relevant to us. There's a new thing in science, it's called interoceptive awareness. That means a human being must become so aware of himself that when he eats, he must see what effect it has on him. Different behaviors. They say, and in this way, you actually become conscious to make a change within yourself. So this is what I hope as we go through this, what each one of us is going to, not as an intellectual or an academic study, but as an introspection. So the first thing you can do to yourself, which is be useful to others, is smile. Okay? They did a study now. They took students that were given a difficult task. Now remember, we know difficult tasks, what it does is it produces cortisol. But what they did, they asked the students to put a pen in their mouths. Now you know when you put a pen in the mouth, it looks almost like you're smiling. Okay? So picture these students are busy with this very difficult test. They got the pen in their mouths. But you know what happened? They found that the muscles in the mouth were sending signals to the brain to say that this person is smiling. And that the cortex, the motor cortex, send messages to the frontal cortex to say, okay, produce what they call the happy molecules because this person is smiling. Now imagine when you are really smiling, what's happening. You're producing serotonin, you're producing dopamine, you're producing oxytocin, you're producing endorphins, all the things that make you feel good and that make you healthy. Every single cell in your body becomes loose, becomes flexible, just with a smile, okay? In addition to that, human beings have what they call mirror neurons. So, as soon as somebody sees you smiling, the parts in his motor cortex automatically send signals to his mouth to say, you better start moving. So what they've discovered now, if one person sees another one smiling, they'll have to consciously fight against their own automatic system to resist smiling. You see, you have to be absolutely negative to resist the smile of someone smiling. So the first important thing, smile. The hadith says, the Sahabi says, I never saw, from the time I embraced Islam, I never saw the Prophet ﷺ except he was smiling. Why? He lived in rahmah. You see? Next thing, help. The Prophet ﷺ says, Wallahu fi awni al-abdi ma kana al-abdu fi awni akhi. Allah is in the assistance of his servant as long as the servant is assisting his brother or sister. You want the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Just give some help to someone else. It doesn't matter what it is. Just some help. The rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes to you. Teach somebody something good. Man dalla ala khayrin falahu mithlu dhalik. The Prophet ﷺ says, whoever shows or points someone to someone good, he gets the same reward. You know, in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says, ala kulli muslimin sadaqatin. On every sadaqatun, on every believer is a charity. And the Sahaba said, فَإِن لَمْ يَفْعَلْ, and what if he doesn't do it? He said, فَلْيُعِينُ ذَا الْحَاجَةِ الْمَلْحُوفِ. Just comfort the one that's destitute and grieving. You just go visit a sick person or give somebody a good word, you know, you get the rahmah. But we do that now as like a mechanical thing, you know. We don't realize that we're visiting the sick person, we there to collect the rahmah. We actually there like we came to fetch a pot of gold. Allah left it there, go fetch it. You know, the Prophet ﷺ said, if you visit a sick person, it's like you're walking in the gardens of paradise. Why? The rahmah of Allah is coming. But the Prophet ﷺ said, give the sadaqah, that person, give him a good word. Comfort him. That's why you went to see him. You know, we become so selfish, we go to collect our pot of gold and leave. The comfort of that person is non-existent. Then you get no rahmah and you leave him with no rahmah. Give people sincere advice. Advise them. You know, we know the story of the Sahaba who was selling a horse. He met his companion. He said, how much for the horse? We'll just use an example. He said, 200 dirhams. And he said, but you can get more. He said, okay, 400. He said, you can get more. He said, 600. He said, you can get more. He said, 800. And then this man said, okay, I'll buy it. He said, but why? You could have bought it for 200. He said, Bay'atu Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I took bay'ah with the Prophet sallallahu ala iqami salah, to perform the salah, wa ita'i zakah, and to give the zakah, wa nushi li kulli muslimin, and to give sincere advice to every Muslim. We need to introspect, right? Do we want the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We need to pray for others. Because when you pray for others, Allah appoints one angel to say, walak. The same for you. The rahmah of Allah comes. Pray for the people you don't like. Allah will put the love of that person into your heart, and then both of you benefit. Amazing, right? The Prophet ﷺ said the poor people that love themselves most in Jannah is a disbeliever who killed a believer and then became a Muslim. Because the believer will say, because of you, I came into Islam. You see? And the killed one, the killer, will be so pleased that he enjoyed the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that when he enters into Jannah and he sees that this one loves him, he loves him back. You see? So pray for others. Say thank you. We did this previously. When you say thank you, it has a physiological effect on you. And we said there was a difference even between saying thanks and thank you. One is more impersonal. So there's a difference in the level of rahmah. And you know what happens when you say thank you to someone? Automatically, you actually calm their nervous system down. And you attract their heart to your heart. And so what happens? Both of you enjoy the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the thank you, the reward for thank you is whose reward? It's the one that says it. You know, we always think we're doing a favor. They did a survey and they found that thank you even depends on the circumstances people find themselves in. They found that people that eat in expensive restaurants say thank you less than people that eat in cheap ones. Because they're spending more money, they think they're doing the establishment a favor and then they ill-treat the waiters. Imagine that. You see, you know humility. Instead of thanking Allah for this favor, for giving you the ability to afford that meal, you see that as a preference for yourself over that person. Okay, so say thank you. It's for your own benefit. Inshallah, when we're done, I'm going to just convert these notes to a PDF. I'll send it to Faisal and to Zaida, and then she can send it to you so you can have all the notes before we leave. The next thing, greet with salam. The Prophet ﷺ says, تَطْعِمُ الطَّعَامِ, feed the hungry, وَتَقْرَأُ السَّلَامِ, and spread the salam, وَصَلُّوا بِالنَّاسِ نِيَامِ, and pray when people are sleeping, meaning tahajjud, تَدْخُلُوا الْجَنَّةَ بِالسَّلَامِ, enter into Jannah with peace. But the salam, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You see the rahmah, it comes back to you. So greet with salam and then feed people. That's from the same hadith, right? Tat'imu ta'am. Now be useful to yourself. This is something that we all need. The first thing we need to learn to do is to regulate our breathing. Breathing is the remote control of the body. It oxygenates your blood. It controls your respiratory system, which in turn controls your heart rate, which in turn controls your blood pressure. Half of the anxiety we get is from not failing to breathe. When people join the US Marines and the US Navy SEALs, one of the first things they teach them is to breathe. So if ever they get captured, they'll be able to self-regulate and think themselves out, because they know when you're not breathing correctly, you can't think properly. There's a story of this US Marine diving in Iraq, and the IED, you know, those explosive devices, blew up the Humvee, blew off his legs, and when he saw his legs off, he got into such a panic he couldn't think. Then he remembered the breathing. And that calmed him enough down to put tourniquets on both his legs, get himself out of the Humvee, and that what saved his life. So they teach them something called 4x4 breathing. Okay? You breathe in 4. And you must count. Because by counting, you take your mind off whatever else it's on. So count to 4 in, count to 4 out. And make sure the air is going into your stomach. Because your diaphragm of your lungs goes right down and presses onto your stomach. Normally, if I say to you, breathe deeply, the first thing we do is your chest moves up. That's the shallowest breath you can ever take. A deep breath is down. And so your lungs have a second chance of getting the oxygen even when it comes out. Breathe in 4, breathe out 4. Whenever you find yourself getting angry, getting anxious, start to regulate your breath. What it does is it activates your parasympathetic nervous system. Remember the vagus nerve? So what it's doing, it's putting the brakes on the system. As soon as you regulate breath, it's putting brakes on the system. Okay? The second thing is the food. Halal and tayyib. And sufficient. Kulu wa sharabu wa la tusrifu. Eat and drink, but don't Don't transgress. Don't exceed the limits. First of all, food, they find a direct relationship between the bacteria in your stomach and the health of your heart, the health of your brain, the health of your immune system. So the quality of food is important. For us as Muslims, it must be chemically pure and electrically stable. That's what must be. This is what halal and tayyib is. Okay? In disease today, they say we have the disease of growth. Because we're eating too much sugars. The body is producing too much energy, it stores it as fat, and then it's going to plug itself on the arteries in the heart and in the brain, and it's causing heart disease and stroke and high blood pressure, and obviously cancer is a disease of growth. Now, from last week, we did autophagy, which is the opposite. When you fast, the body activates a hormone which causes the body to burn up all of this excess energy and to renew the cells. So eating is very important. Eating for us, first of all, has become a luxury. It's become something we live for weekends. It's not something to sustain ourselves. It's a luxury that we have overindulged in, and that's causing the diseases. For your children, be careful of sugar. There's a professor at Harvard. They found that in 1963, the Sugar Research Foundation in America commissioned a study on sugar and fat. In the first part of the study, the mice that were on the sugar tests, their bodies became so toxified in the first tests, so that the Sugar Research Foundation then gave Harvard a second grant to start a second study called Project 259. But in the middle of that study, they found so many adverse effects on the sugar, they shelved the study. This particular person was doing their PhD at Harvard and found this faculty building, and in there they found like about 34,000 different articles of the study on how they buried the research on sugar. And what they then did was they used their media arms to declare war on fat. So everything became low fat and cut out all of this, all of that. And if you see anything with low fat, run away from it because it's high in sugar. It was a whole con. So anything you're eating from the sources and all of those things are filled with sugar and salt, and it's driving disease. So be careful what we eat. The next thing, hydrate yourself. Your body is 70 to 80% water. Hydration drives respiration. If you dehydrated, one of the first symptoms, you feel hungry. Or you feel like you're hungry. But in actual fact, you're thirsty. And so what it can do, it can lead to obesity. It leads to headaches and dizziness and high blood pressure, high pulse rate, all just from not drinking water. All right? And we know, Allah says, فَمَنْ يَأْتِكُمْ بِمَاءٍ مَعِينٍ. If your water is lost in the morning, we'll give you clear water to drink. This is a great ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we must hydrate ourselves. Now again, we must be introspecting, right? The other thing about water flushes the toxins. Water flushes the toxins out of the body. So two things flush toxins out of the body. It's water and movement. We'll come back to movement just now, right? But speech, so remember, if smiling has such an effect on your body, imagine what effect speech has on your body. We must watch the tone of our voices. وَقُلْ لِعِبَادِي يَقُولُ الَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Allah says, say to my servants, they should speak what is beautiful. Alright? We must talk beauty. مَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ فَلْيَقُلْ خَيْرًا أَوْ لِيَصْمُتْ. Whoever believes in Allah in the last day, let him say what is good or be silent. Because you're harming yourself and you deprive yourself of the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next thing is sleep. And I'm guilty of this most of all. But sleep is very powerful and beneficial for your body. Because sleep during deep sleep, which happens after about 3 hours, your brain releases cerebrospinal fluid, which actually flushes out the toxins out of your brain. It activates homeostasis, which is the body's self-healing mechanism. So sleep is absolutely important. And you know in the ayahs and Surah Allah says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ مَنَامُكُمْ بِاللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ. And from his great signs is sleeping in the day and the night. And the other important thing is sleeping in the day. I mean, science is discovering now that the human being has a natural inclination to sleep when it experiences the highest temperature in the day. And having that sleep, the benefit of it is that it helps to consolidate memory and it boosts your mental faculty. So you know what they did? They took judges in America and they studied over 1,000 judgments and they looked at the effectiveness of the judgments and they found that by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the judgments were almost absolutely incorrect because the judges were tired. And when they came back after recess, the next hour or hour and a half, they were, I think, 60% as effective as they were in the morning. So they say in America, if you go to court, make sure you're there 9 o'clock in the morning. Let your case be heard. But just showing you the effect on fatigue, what it has on your mind. The next thing is to walk, right? وَبِكُلِّ خَطْوَةٍ تَمْشِيَ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ صَدَقَةٍ. Every step you take to the mosque is a sadaqah. And I must tell you, I started walking, I think 2 months ago, but I can't tell you what an enjoyment it is. How much time you have to think and even read just walking to the masjid. But we must walk because movement is what helps us to flush toxins out of the body. And sitting, we discussed previously, is deadly for our bodies. And you know, now they have this new thing of standing desks. But standing, they now discover it's worse than sitting. Because when you're standing, there's no circulation. So you have to be moving. You know, they say use it or lose it. This is the thing about your body. Use your brain or lose it. Use your health or lose it. So walking is important. Exercise, we know, produces endorphins and strengthens the immune system, has powerful effects on the body. And then the sun, what we spoke about. You know, the sun, the skin takes light from the sun, converts it to, we say vitamin D, which is actually a hormone. Vitamin D in turn activates about 2,000 genes in your body, which are involved in healing and combating disease. So one of the most powerful medicines is not those things we buy from discount, but it's the sun itself. And I don't know when we thanked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the benefit of the sun, as we said earlier. So there's something people suffer from, which is a biophotologist. It's called malillumination. You know, we have malnutrition. It means you're undernourished. And malillumination can lead to weight gain, fatigue, depression, headaches, pain, hormonal imbalances, sleep disorders, PMS, lowered immune responses, vitamin deficiencies, lack of vitality. Sunlight can help you reduce cortisol, it can help with your heart rate, it can help lower even your blood pressure, just by being in the sun. So let us be useful to ourselves. Fasting, we saw the benefits last week in that video. Earthing, which we know is the salah. Spending, we know now spending is more beneficial for the person giving the money than the one receiving it. Cupping, the Prophet ﷺ says, is a disease for everything except death. But please, we're not studying this academically, we introspecting. Networking. Remember the hadith? Al-mu'minu ya'lafu wa yu'lafu. وَلَا خَيْرَ فِي مَنْ لَا يَأْلَفُ وَلَا يُؤْلَفُ. That the believer is one who cooperates and gets along with others. And we know from the Harvard study, the greatest single indicator of long life is good social relations. So networking is being part of the community and being part of the ummah. Forgive. It's a gift to yourself. Look at this, Dr. Tyler van der Wiel, a professor of epidemiology at Harvard School of Public Health. He says, forgiving someone is a public health issue. Because when unforgiveness activates negativity in the body. Negativity activates cortisol. And cortisol affects what? Everything from your hair to the circulation in your feet. And everything in between. So forgive. Alright? We know the Prophet ﷺ had on his sword to forgive the one that harms you. So the greatest weapon, this William James, a doctor, he says the greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. In other words, we can reframe our thoughts. Alright? So look what Ibn Taymiyyah says, is when someone offends me, I think it's a gift from Allah. He's teaching me humility. You see how you reframe the thought? Or somebody harmed you and say, well, maybe I did something to Allah, so He is paying me back. I need to sort myself out so I can regain the Rahman. Be grateful. We spoke about gratitude last week and its powerful effects. Be positive. You know, we did the study of the student from Stanford University. They were doing a trial on placebos and they gave them antidepressants, but it was actually sugar tablets. And this one student overdosed, rushed to the hospital, gave them his bottle. He said, please help me, I drank all my pills. And his heart rate was falling and blood pressure was dropping. And they put him on a drip, trying to get hold of the doctor whose name was on the bottle. And for 3 hours he was on this drip and they couldn't stabilize him. 3 hours later, the doctor from Stanford that was running this experiment came. He went in, he looked at the guy. He said, this is a placebo study. What you took was actually sugar. It was a sugar tablet. It was not antidepressant. In 15 minutes time, he walked out. 3 hours, the drug couldn't stabilize him. In 15 minutes, he was out of the hospital. It's the power of positivity and negativity. Be kind. The Prophet said, "Arifku la yazidu fi shay'in illa zana." Kindness is not added towards something except it beautifies it. Be hopeful. We must constantly be hopeful, even if we're living here. Be hopeful. The whole world is saying ESCOM is collapsing. Be hopeful. Because if you fall into negativity, you will suffer. You'll have no light and you'll have no health. Keep the health. And remember the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Be non-judgmental. This is one of the biggest problems we have. We must pass judgment. You know, reserve judgment. You know, there's a beautiful video going out on the WhatsApp of this woman that studied in Syria. And she went to the most qualified Quran reciter in Syria, and she had to recite the Quran, and she was a bit nervous. And this Sheikha said to her, calm down, don't be nervous. You know, I used to be worse than you. So she said, what do you mean? Said, you know, I used to wear mini skirts. I was a doctor of mathematics, I was a feminist. And one day some feminists called me and they said, some Muslim women called me. I said, let me go to the talk, and they were speaking about the Prophet ﷺ. I was attracted by what they were saying, and I went back and went back and went back, and eventually Allah put faith in my heart. She used that same mind of hers that made her a doctor of mathematics. She became the best student of the teacher. When he used to leave class, he used to leave her in charge. And so she said, the fact that those women didn't judge me is why I have this great knowledge of the Quran today. So don't judge. Look what Ibn Taymiyyah says. You should not look at what the person used to do. Rather, you should look at what kind of person they are today. The one who gets bogged down about people's pasts is just like Iblis, who said to Allah, you created me from fire and you created him from clay. He looked at who who Adam was, not looking at who Adam is. So don't be judgmental. Be patient. Patient is positivity. Ibn Qayyim says patience is that the heart does not feel anger towards that which is destined and that the mouth does not complain. Again, let's look at us in the last couple of days. Have we exercised patience or not? Because negativity is shedding your light. Alright? And negativity together with the shaitan is stealing our light from us, entering us into darkness. So don't seek out the faults. Don't spy. Now this is a hadith, right? We'll go through it now. Don't compare and compete. Don't envy. Don't hate. And don't cut ties. Right? So the Prophet says, La tahassasu. In the hadith he said, Iyakum wa-dhann, fa-inna dhann akdhabul hadith. Be careful of suspicion. Suspicion is the worst of false speech. وَلَا تَحَسَّسُوا. Don't find faults. وَلَا تَجَسَّسُوا, and don't spy. وَلَا تَنَافَسُوا, don't compete. This is one of the great dangers of social media. وَلَا تَحَاسَدُوا, because competing leads to envy. وَلَا تَبَاغَضُوا, and envy leads to hatred. وَلَا تَدَابَرُوا, and hatred leads to cutting ties. وَكُونُوا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ إِخْوَانًا. But be servants of Allah. So, let's just go through this. Don't mock and ridicule. You know, one of the things is with this new social media, people want to take photos of other people, make it look funny. If they find something funny of someone else, send it out. I mean, what is that? The Prophet says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا يَسْخَرْ قَوْمٌ مِّنْ قَوْمٍ عَسَىٰ أَن يَكُونُوا خَيْرًا مِّنْهُمْ. Let one of you not mock another. Maybe they're better than you. وَلَا نِسَاءٌ مِّن نِسَاءٍ. Or one group of women mocking another woman. عَسَىٰ أَن يَكُنَّ خَيْرًا مِّنْهُنَّ. Maybe the one you're mocking is better than you. وَلَا تَلْمِزُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَلَا تَنَابَزُوا بِالْأَلْقَابِ. You know, don't humiliate one another. And don't call each other by nicknames. فَمَنْ لَمْ يَتُوبْ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. If you don't repent, you will be of the people of darkness. So just see how willing we are when we find something funny. What's the first thing you want to do? About someone you don't like is to forward it. That's negativity, we need to check that. Okay? So don't extinguish your light. This is the saying of Imam Ghazali. He says, some people have the disease of criticizing all the time. They forget the good about others and only mention their faults. They are like flies that avoid the good and pure places and land on the bad and wounds. This is because of the evil within the self and the spoiled nature. So, let us be careful. Alright? And then avoid gossiping. This is one of the worst things to steal away your light. And this is again, you know, we take it for granted now, but one of the biggest tools for gossiping now is the social media. You just get a WhatsApp and then you say forwarded as received. You're like trying to absolve yourself of blame. But you're forwarding that thing. You don't even know whether it's true or not, you know. And backbiting is when you say what's true about the person and they don't like it. Slander is when you say what's false. So, you know, Ibn Taymiyyah says it is strange that a person may find it easy to protect himself from eating haram, oppression, injustice, adultery, theft, drinking alcohol, and from unlawful looking, but it's hard for him or her to restrain the movement of his tongue. How often do we see people who are very cautious about falling into shameful deeds or injustice, but their tongue lashes against the living and the dead and they don't mind it? You're losing rahmah. Then avoid riba. Remember that merciful Prophet ﷺ who lived his life in that green zone? He declares war on you if you're in riba. Avoid oppression. اتقوا الظلم فإن الظلم ظلمات يوم القيامة. Because oppression will be darkness for you on Judgment Day. Avoid arrogance. All right? You know, this I found amazing. This was a brand new study. It was done by the University of Missouri, and now we finish it. But it's the most extensive study done on pride. And if you just look at it, they're saying there, individual arrogance, can you see that? Distorting information, overestimations of one's information, resistance to new information. So that means when you cover up what's the truth, you resist what's true, that's a form of arrogance. And the other one they call comparative and antagonistic arrogance is when you fail to consider the perspective of others, you believe in your assumption of superiority, and you humiliate others. So they're studying this now in 2019, and they're saying this is arrogant. But look at the Prophet ﷺ. He says, no one has the weight of a seed of arrogance in his heart will enter paradise. Someone said, but a man who loves to have beautiful clothes and shoes, the Prophet ﷺ said, Inna Allah jamilun wa yuhibbul jamal. Allah is beautiful and He loves beauty. But look what He says. Arrogance, al-kibru, batarul haq. Pride is covering up the truth, which is exactly what they're talking here in the first three. Wa ghamtun nas, and looking down on people, and that's exactly what they say in the second three. So we have, in that small hadith, a wisdom that it took a team of scientists to discover now in the 21st century. Avoid negativity, we discussed that, and avoid obscenity. This is another danger of the social media. You have men following other men's wives, and wives following other men's husbands. What do you think? Where's the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? It's out of the window. You know, we think it's in that device, so it's far away. The rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will leave us quicker than that message leaves the phone. So, you know, Allah, inna Allah ya'mur bil adl wal ihsan wa ita'i dhil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsha'i. Allah prohibits obscenity in all forms. And we did this, Allah is in the servants of His servant as long as the servant is helping his or her brother. So, you know, we like to quote this verse. We say, Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas. You are the best ummah taken out from mankind. But there's a qualification there. تَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. That you enjoin what is good. وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. And you forbid what is evil. وَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ. Now you know how the Sahaba understood this. Look, Ibn Abbas, he says, you are the best of people for the benefit of people. You're not the best of people because you're praying and making the most khatams. That's all in its place. But you are the best of people because you have the most benefit. Sayyidina Umar was making tawaf and people were pushing and shoving and being rough. And he quoted this verse. And he said, why don't you live up to what Allah praised you with in the Quran? Meaning, stop doing this harming of each other. So, this is a beautiful saying. You know, Ralph Waldo Emerson, he says, the purpose of life is not to be happy. It's to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well. We need to find meaning through the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, if we look at Rahman, how do we attract this mercy? Istighfar, dua, hope in Allah, treat the creation with mercy, taqwa, shukr, and community. And we should learn how to live and should not be so concerned about where to live. Everyone today wants to know where to live. Where should we be going, to Turkey or moving to Australia or moving wherever? But before you move anywhere, learn how to live. Before we concern ourselves with where to live. And how to live, we need to live with reliance, with acceptance, with humility, with iman, with ihsan, and be useful. Because at the end of the day, this light that we want to acquire here, we need to take it with us. That light needs to enter into the grave with us, and that life, inshallah, needs to be with us on Qiyamah. We need the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on Qiyamah. So Ibn Qayyim, he says, beware of every hour and how it passes. I know this took time, but all these things we spoke about, the speech and the eating and all of those things are how we pass our time. Beware of every hour and how it passes. And only spend it in the best possible way. Do not neglect yourself, but render it accustomed to the noblest and best of actions, and send to your grave that which will please you when you arrive to it. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور